Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Market Snapshot series. My name is Rufas Kamau, Markets Analyst at FX Pesa. So welcome to another day of busy trading. Today is Thursday, so there's quite a lot that we're expecting to be happening in the markets today. So we'll be expecting some increased volatility, especially in US dollar as well as UK pound pairs. So as we all know, we had a big day yesterday in the afternoon where we saw US inflation data coming in at 4.9% in the year, dropping from 5.0% in the previous month. So monthly inflation went up 0.4%. This was as expected. And also core CPI rose 0.4%, same as March the same year. But also the expectation of was 0.3%. So this was quite a surprise in the markets. So as a result of the news, we happened to see the dollar strengthening while, the dollar weakening while equities were weakening. But then after a period of time, we saw the complete reversal. And now we are beginning a new day with a very strong dollar in the markets where other currencies are losing to the dollar. So today, there's quite a number of things happening in the economic calendar. So I'll begin looking at them right away. So first things first, we have Chinese data, which came in earlier at 4:30 a.m. And this is inflation as well as a producer price index. So inflation year over year went down lower to 0.1% compared to the previous reading of an increase of 0.7%. Of an increase to 0.7%. So it basically implies that Chinese economy is approaching a disinflationary period. And if this happens, then this might not be very good for China. However, an inflation rate between 0 and 2% tends to be quite healthy. And it's a good environment for stocks and the economy to expand. So going into the negative territory might be a problem, but this is still within expectations. So going forward for the day, the most important data point will be coming from the UK. So the most important data point will be coming from the UK, and this is where we see interest rate data. So there'll be a set of news releases happening all at the same time at 2 p.m. One will be the Bank of England Monetary Policy Report, the MPC official bank rate votes, monetary policy summary, and also the official bank rate. So investors will be majorly focused on the official bank rate, where in the previous reading, they hiked interest rates by 25 basis points to 4.25%. And now we're expecting another hike to 4.50%. So if this happens, the overall expectation is that the central bank of the UK is tightening policy further. So in this case, we'll be expecting a much stronger GBP and weaker UK equities. So later on in the day at 3:30 p.m., we'll get more news from the US, and this will be producer price index data as well as core PPI. So in the previous reading, it dropped by negative 0.5%, but in this month reading, we'll be expecting an increase of 0.3%. So if producer price index is going up, then it's basically representative of an area where CPI is expected to be higher on the next month. But then if it's going down, then it basically indicates lower inflationary pressures, and the market reaction could be similar with what we saw with the CPI yesterday. So a strong PPI would basically mean that the Fed would have to combine all this data, look at the jobs data and the way there was an increase, look at wage growth, look at the CPI and also the PPI. And if all of them are indicating a tougher environment for fighting inflation, then the Fed may have to go for a stronger rate hike on the next meeting. And in that case, we could be seeing the dollar continue to strengthen against other currencies. And also we could be seeing US equities start seeing some level of weakness. So with that in mind, we know that the last day of the week will be Friday, where we will be focusing on New Zealand inflation expectations at 6 a.m. tomorrow. And also before we get to even 10 a.m., we will see GDP data from the UK, and these will be happening at 9 a.m. So this is expected to be a busy day. Later on, we'll be seeing manufacturing production data as well as industrial production for the UK. before we narrow down to preliminary University of Michigan Consumer Sentiment Survey, as well as inflation expectation survey at 5 p.m. So that's it for the economic calendar. And now it makes sense to start looking at prices, try to understand some key price levels happening in the markets. So one of them is the UK 100 index, which has been majorly bearish after topping around this area here. So we saw a lot of attempts to push prices down. The market rallied on Friday last week before trading sideways on Monday when we had a holiday. Tuesday went down, Wednesday went down, and today it's headed much higher. So it's clear that European equities are making a strong recovery, including the EU 50 or the Euro stocks. So we could be expecting these European indices to continue making a recovery today, whereas the American indices are also doing something similar. So after making a big spike after the CPI yesterday, you can see there has been some continued movement upwards. So for the Dow Jones, it majorly recovered after hitting, reverted after hitting this resistance here and went all the way back down before making a recovery towards the end of the day. And today seems to be moving higher. And also the S&P 500 did something similar. Made a big spike, reverted, and now it's headed much higher. But then looking at the price action in the last couple of hours, the most important data point we have seen seems to be the US dollar index, which made a big spike, broke yesterday and the previous day's high, and is now headed towards the upper side of this particular triangle that it has been trading in for the last 6 weeks. So now we are approaching a decision point towards the upper trend line, but then it's testament that we have a very strong US dollar. So trading for the day might include looking for bullish positions for the dollar and bearish positions for other currencies. So as you can see for pound USD, after the big spike yesterday during the news, we have seen a continued momentum downwards. So the price levels on the upper side were clearly overextended for a majority of these major currencies. And this was bound to happen. That is the market now moving downwards towards the lower trend line. And it's a similar story across board. So if you look at New Zealand USD, unable to form higher highs, is now pushing pressure towards the lower side. So our initial target of 0.631 remains. And also Euro USD making a break here on the 4-hour. I remember showing you this rising wedge. So the market broke towards the lower side, retested the trend line here, then went down, retested again early in the morning, and now we have seen the continuation of this pattern here. So from the 4-hour chart, it's clear we have a nice break. So we'll be looking at the next price level. So the very short-term target is 1.091, and also if we break here, then the next target remains 1.08311. So for USD CAD, it's the same story. So we managed to bounce from here. Market kept going up. So I had mentioned yesterday that the target remains at 1.341. So we touched that slightly before the market pulled back, and now it's confirmed that we have reached a critical price level of 1.34113. So now we'll be observing for signs of a break and continuation higher. So remember, this was a major resistance, but now if you happen to break here, then the next target remains 1.350. So for USD JPY, a very sharp drop here to the trend line yet again, and now we are bouncing. So I remember mentioning these that in this pattern that looked like a route speaker, the market is expected to drop towards the lower trend line here. So it happened during the news, and the market broke that and kept going down, got to the lower trend line, struggled a little bit around here. But then if you look at the candlesticks on the 1-hour chart, there was a clear indication of rejection of lower prices. And today the dollar opens very strong, and it's expected to make a further recovery against the JPY. So some further upside could be expected towards 135.124. So as for gold, our target was 2048. The market spiked towards the area, didn't quite touch the price, and then pulled back downwards during the news. And today, seeing the dollar being very strong, there's more pressure to push gold prices back downwards. So from the current price level and what you're seeing in the 15-minute chart, seems like the market is attempting to reject lower prices. So if gold manages to hold this area, then we could be seeing the price move back up towards the 2031 price level for the day. But then if the bearish momentum continues, then the target will be 2014 as we had projected earlier. So for AUD-USD, it was clear. The market was clearly unable to form higher highs. And now what we are seeing here is a market that is attempting to break the lower trend line. So the current candlestick is currently attempting to do that. And if we have that break, then we go for 0.671. So it's an area of wait and see how the candlestick closes, whether there is a continuation or rejection of this price. So if dollar remains strong, then we go down lower. Alternatively, if this happens to be a bounce, then we go back to 0.67589 as a short-term target, and also the previous high of 0.6792 as a target on the resistance level here. So that's it for the day. For Brent oil, we have seen the market trading sideways for 3 days, and this is the 4th day. So we have been unable to break this level. So I would say all these trend lines now don't make sense. So what makes sense is to identify the consolidation area here. So this is the area along which the price has been moving sideways, and we haven't seen any serious break outside that level for a while now. So whenever the market is ranging like this, it makes sense to wait until you see a breakout. So potentially a breakout to the upper side will be very nice for the bull traders. But if that doesn't happen and the market breaks down towards the lower side, then we could also trade downwards. So I'll be looking at the questions to see if you have any questions arising. Hello, Patrick. Hello, J. Scott, Charles, John, and Sue. From Bullish Banter episode, Jesse, the host, asked Wamitheko on what informs his targets for the day using the DXY correlation to asset classes. Please be free to share with us. So if you're asking about me on what informs my targets for the day, mainly I try to project on the previous support and resistance levels, and they seem to be working quite well. So if you're able to identify the high of the week, the low of the week, the high of the previous day and the low of the previous day, then they tend to be very nice targets for the day. So if you're day trading and let's say you're on pound USD, then you can see, for instance, yesterday's high was here and the low was here. And now price has broken yesterday's low and kept going down lower. So if you are in the position, then this previous day's target would have been nice. But then notice these key price levels. So yesterday's low, we closed through that. Then the previous day's low, this is here. This one has already been hit. And if price keeps going down, then this other day's low seems to be a nice target. So these different levels seem to be very nice short-term targets, especially when you're trading intraday. So as for now, for pound USD, it seems like the market is attempting to make a recovery. But then, as I mentioned, today in the economic calendar, we expect an announcement by the Bank of England on interest rates, and this is expected to raise volatility in the GBP. So when this happens, it's expected to cause a big spike either up or down, and this may not be appropriate time to trade the pound USD, knowing that there is oncoming news. However, for other currencies, it makes sense to look for potential trading setups. For this one, we just wait to see the outcome of the news. So one key thing to understand is that this is a very important price level for pound USD. So I'll just be highlighting this. So as you can see, the market has been bouncing off this level for several times. So if you happen to see news that strengthens the pound, then the next target will be the previous high. So after the BOE announcement, 1.26783 could be a nice target. But then if we happen to see weakness in the pound, then we look at the next key price level. So you will notice that this area has had several rejection of prices, and this could be very significant in trading the pound today. So we could be seeing the price spike all the way down to 1.25, which is basically a round number. So this is the potential outcome of the pound USD news later in the day. So Still checking to see if there's any more questions. Take on Euro Yen, I think we already covered USD card, so you'd have to go back through the session to retest. Oil, we have already done that. So let's check out Euro Yen. So for USD card, I think we join in late. We have already covered that. Oil, we have already done that. BTC, not yet. So let's look at Euro JPY. So as we all know, we always start with the top-bottom analysis. So we try to understand what is happening in the bigger picture before we jump into the smaller picture. So clearly, on the daily, we have a market that was trading upwards, and we seem to have rejected this higher price, and the market reverted towards the lower side. And if you observe the lower trend line, it seems to be somewhere along this area here. So this is what we are seeing with the Euro JPY currency pair, basically trading along these two trend lines on the daily. And now, if you move to a 4-hour time frame, you notice that in between patterns, there is also other patterns. So before we got to this upper trend line, there was this particular pattern that was being followed on the 4-hour chart and also on this area here. So I would say that the market was pretty much following this path here. Before it broke here towards the lower side on last week, retested the area and is now moving down lower. So with this in mind, if you now move to a smaller time frame, in this case, the 1-hour chart, then you can see the sharp break that happened here, a retest of the area and further downside momentum, indicating that the JPY is currently very strong against the euro. But then it's also very important to notice that there are what we may describe as confluence levels. So for now, it seems like there's some area here that the market is attempting to break, and yet it's finding some form of resistance, currently being unable to break. And this, to me, seems like a neckline. A neckline is a major support level that tends to support either a double top, a triple top, or even a head and shoulder pattern. So for anyone who is keen on these, then you can identify these as a shoulder. The other one as the head. This is the big swing. Of course, the head is always higher than the shoulder. So this didn't quite get to the neckline, but then you can see it's almost there. So market goes up again and then drops back to the neckline, thereby completing the pattern. So in such a case, you only trade when there's a break. So I would be very observant to see if there's a break of that level. So if there's a break down this trend line, then I would be trading lower. But then if the market moves back up and forms, let's say, a high that is lower than the shoulder, then that might also be an entry position for a short selling trade. So if we happen to see anything around this area that indicates bearish entry, then this would mean we go short. But the most important one, if there was a break below this level. So that's it for today. Thank you very much, guys. Thank you for your time. As for BTC, I don't think it's really doing well after yesterday's sell-off. So you can see the sharp drop that happened yesterday, followed by a very strong rejection. And now there's attempts to move down lower. But then I consider this as a major support level. So for anyone who is trading BTC, we know that this is a major support level. So signs of bullish momentum might be the indicator here, looking for a trade going up. So as we all know, this is not investment advice, neither is it a recommendation to trade. So you should always do your due diligence and also practice proper risk management. So we will be having another episode later in the day. This will be happening at 8 p.m. on the Market Pulse series. So hopefully that one will be longer and we'll take a deeper dive on where the opportunities are. So we also look at the major key developments, especially in the US debt ceiling story, which seems to be a major focus in the markets today. We will also be looking at the US banking crisis, and hopefully we will get a direction and a couple of opportunities in the markets.